let's do what we usually do.
All right.
Okay. So
I,
I am
I,
go.
I've just got this surge of love for you. I just need to name that so that it can ease back a bit because it was kind of flooding.
Yeah. Yeah, probably just wants to look at you.
Hello, Pot. I'm right here.
Ah,
Ah,
so a part of me wants to say I'm excited to be with my friend Derek Scott today. And another part of me says I'm not excited about this at all, actually. Um, but for so many people, if you know Derek Scott, and I don't know anybody who doesn't know you, I found you on YouTube when I first found out about IFS, and Derek was putting these videos on YouTube where he was being the client and the therapist, and he was going back and forth. And there were these amazing videos on YouTube, and that is transformed into he was doing workshops at his retreats in at his house. And then COVID happened, and then he moved across the country in Canada, and now does so many people have taken your trainings. They haven't been able to get in level one, and everyone says, oh, we'll do a Derek stepping stone. And before that, though, you were doing these monthly master classes. So you've just really evolved and done these amazing things. And you've been on the podcast a bunch of times. We did one on the introduction, like how do you intro IFS? We did one on grief. Um, and we did, I think, two on COVID. One we never published, but one I remember a very tearful. I remember exactly where I was when we recorded a podcast during COVID and just talked about what was happening. And you have been a friend to me. Um, and I remember when I first uh, was thinking about doing a podcast, I was assisting in a training, and Mona Barbera said, you should contact Derek Scott. I was like, I'm not going to, he's famous. I'm not going to contact him. And she said, he is very friendly and very approachable. And you have always been a friend to me. I don't know if people know that you are incredibly sarcastic, and I have loved your sarcasm. And sometimes I'm like, I think he's kidding. But I've loved your sarcasm. So I say all of that to say I am honored to be with you today, and talk about something that I don't want to talk about, but here we are.
I can talk about it.
Okay. And I can be with you as you do.
It's our last time together. Yeah. So my apologies. My voice is off. The reason is I have throat cancer, which I have been living with now for 13 months. Went through chemo and radiation, and that didn't work. Um, but it shrunk the tumor, so now it's back up. And I'm about 5 weeks from my passing. I live in Canada. I'm so grateful I live in Canada for two reasons. One is the treatment for the cancer. I Googled average amount for a US citizen for it's $160,000. Here it's
Mm,
free.
mm,
And we have MAID, which is medical assistance in dying. So I've met the woman who's going to, part of me says, give me the blue fluid like they do with the dogs, you know? But we have that, so I can choose how I exit. And I would strongly recommend everyone to advocate for that wherever you are, because here's the choice. If that wasn't available to me, here's what's going to happen. The tumor is pressing on the artery. If it continues to press, I will have a stroke, or it will burst the artery and I'll bleed out and die immediately.
mm.
So I can say my goodbyes with my family and my friends in the way I want to before that happens. And that's a gift. And they call it medical assistance in dying, M.A.I.D, because I think if they went with medical assisted dying, it would be like mad. So that wouldn't work. Right? So
Maid sounds better. Maid sounds better.
Yeah, here,
Is it like a death doula? I think we talked about this. So she's kind of a birth doula and a death doula, or is that something different?
that's something different. She's
Okay.
in Canada, it has to be two doctors that sign off on it. And she's gonna come and give me the blue fluid. So I call her Dr. Death, but her name's actually Michelle, and she's lovely. And as I mentioned to you before, she this is what she does. She brings babies into the world, and she helps grown-ups leave. So she's all about
Mm,
transitions. She happens to be in her second trimester with her second child, and I just really
mm,
liked her, and my
mm.
dog liked her. So we're like, she's in.
That's in. Yeah, yeah.
So.
Um, Go ahead. So we talked about this won't be released until you're gone.
Right.
That's what we talked about. And so so I guess I have a million questions, but I really want to just ask what you want to share. You have shared so much of yourself with us, with this community, and you have left such an imprint on so many people, and you will continue to do that. And so, how would you like to spend this time together?
Thanks, Tammy. I'll tell you something about myself. I had my astrology chart done when I was 30, my natal chart, and the astrologer was really good. But she said, when you were born, Gemini, right? So when you were born, Mercury was right in between retrograde and forward motion. And so you got a blast of Mercury in Gemini. So she looked up from my chart and she said, you have to teach. And it feels
Oh,
very right, you know. So here I am in this process, and I said, what can I learn from this that I can share? What's going to be helpful to people? Because for me, it's all about service, right? It's like, and there's such joy in service. Like any way that I can help people to have this experience be less traumatic, because for some it is traumatic, and what makes it traumatic is a number of things. So that's really what I'd like to talk about. And I've written a book which either will be published by now or people can find their way to it. But I've called it Dead, spoiler alert, a psychotherapist journey with cancer. Because so many of the stories I read are like, she struggled and she won the battle. Right. Well, does that mean I struggled and lost? Does that make me a loser? Like, we don't all win the battle. And who calls it a battle? That's a whole very, very common framing. It's a legacy burden, I believe. And there's
mm,
many legacy burdens associated with death as well. So that's one piece for an IFS therapist to get curious about.
mm,
Right? What does death mean to you? Which parts come up around death? Those are great questions to ask. I'll also be making a video which is very specific to working with cancer, and the questions I would like to have been asked along the way.
mm,
So that's going to be just, of course, a giveaway. Um, that I hope will be helpful for people. And then I had a session with Dick, which was lovely. It was so beautiful. So I think I was talking to my publisher. People that buy the book will also get the link to the video with Dick, so they'll get to see how he's such a master, right? So just when he's in his self energy, as you know, he knows the questions to ask. He just knows, you know. So it's a very beautiful video, which I was delighted that he was willing to offer. So
yeah.
yeah,
One thing that I've known about you is you have always given homage to Dick. Like you have always said this is, I just like you've been so respectful to him through the years. Um, and I don't know that people know that. There's been, because there's IFSI and then there's IFSCA. And so I just think that I've heard you so many times. And you have had Dick do the master classes. You had him on several times. I attended a bunch of them and always just so much reverence for him.
well, he like anyone that's had their life touched by IFS, I have a poet that says they should be grateful to him, right? Because
Yeah,
without him and
yeah,
his pioneering parts,
yeah.
like the man was so driven by his pioneering powers, he had quadruple surgery, bypass surgery on his heart, right? It's like
Mm,
Dick, slow down, right? But yeah, I do see on Facebook sometimes people saying, oh, holding compassion and all these qualities with different parts of you. Where's the reference to Dick, right? Because they
mm.
didn't come up with that. So yeah.
Yeah.
It's important. It's important, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is it about, is there anything about the book that you want to share, or is there anything about your experience for the past 13? Let me ask it that way. What about your experience over the past 13 months do you like to share?
Yeah, I'd love to. So the book's very honest because like, why not? I'm dying, right? So um,
Well, you've always been that way too, though. I don't know that you've ever held back.
let me show you my favorite mug here. It's like,
Oh, so
right,
he is showing a mug that says queer AF, and it's beautiful, beautiful colors, colors of the rainbow.
the rainbows. Um, so the book is about my journey, really, over the 13 months. It's in two parts. That's the first part, which is sort of part memoir, part educational. The second part is geared towards helping people use IFS with grief, which is, as you know, is an area of speciality. Um, because it's hard on on the ones left behind. All I have to do is lay down, right? And the others, yourself, everyone that's connected to me in a heart connection moves through grief. So how to manage that in a way that makes it feel less onerous, right? The way grief tends to happen is the grieving parts will come up and they need to be attended to. Sometimes they flood and blend, which is fine, especially with fresh grief. And then they ease off, and there's an oscillation when other parts are like, okay, I have to go on with my life, come up. And that's the dance. People associate grief with death, obviously. But throughout my journey with cancer, there's been a succession of losses. And the same parts come up every time there's a significant loss. I have not been able to eat for a year. I drink Ensure. My food is pink or white or brown for a year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
so just think for a moment if you cannot eat, right? You socialize, you go out for dinner, you have a drink, right? Like that's it. Like, and then all the foods I loved so much, I cook, gone,
Mm,
right? So significant loss. And what it brings up is denial and disbelief. I call those the twins, right? This can't be
mm,
happening, right? Because they're holding the other parts back until the system can accommodate to, fuck, I can't eat anymore. Right? And parts that are sad about it and parts that are mad about it. Really important to attend to. Some people don't have access to the mad. It's a really important part of grief. Now, often the angry parts have been exiled, particularly in women, because nobody likes an angry girl. You're meant to be pretty, right? So that can be work to get to the protesting parts, right? I'm not okay with this. Then there's an accommodation, right? So, all right, I can't eat. Another huge loss was in December when the tumor hit the nerves, which run to my tongue, and I started talking like this, like I've had a stroke. I had to stop teaching my classes. Again, denial and disbelief. This can't be happening. I'm talking to the fucking doctors. It's like, fix this.
yeah.
So this isn't fixable. This is disease progression. Oh, and then terrible sadness, and then protest. I fucking hate this again, right? And then accommodation, and then moving on. Okay, how can I teach? I'll write a book. And then the hardest, in my case, is saying goodbye to my daughter. She's 20. And the protest says it's not fair. And right behind it, the sadness wants to come. And I so appreciate those parts. I'm just loving them right now because they do all this work. Now, if people don't know how to work with their parts, they get stuck in them, as you know. They stay blended. Denial. It's not happening, right? Um, Disbelief can't be happening. Protest. I fucking hate this. I fucking hate everybody. I fucking hate the world. I fucking hate you. Right? Sadness. It's just awful. Nobody does it. But they get stuck in them because they don't know they're in a blended part. So what I've been able to do is dance with those parts. And then also, once I've attended to them, come to the gratitude. I'm so grateful for my life. I'm so grateful for me. I'm so grateful for you and all my heart connections. I'm so grateful for my dogs. I'm so grateful I've been able to teach. I did good. I did good. So questions come up around purpose and meaning, and I did good this time around, you know?
Mm.
But that dance, if you don't know how to attend to the parts, they're going to stay blended, right? So that's some of the teaching. And the other piece of the teaching in the book, in the first part, is I work with medicines. So I've been working with heart opening medicines that even in the midst of radiation and chemo, which was hell, right? I was able to sit on the hilltop where I live and have a fire and look at the trees and the mountains and be suffused with gratitude, which was like a reset, you know, because every day it was very important to me that I could take the treatment as an outpatient. I want to wake up in my own bed and have my own dog. I didn't want to be in a ward full of straight people. No offense, you know. I mean, you guys are great, but a whole ward full of old straight people like whining about their cancer, no. So my managers took over, and here's another piece. When we're going through a significant life transition, like loss, our managers take over. Because I basically wasn't around for a lot of it, right? So my managers, bless their fucking hearts, drove 4 hours a day for 7 weeks to be irradiated and to sit with chemo and drove home. And as part of my treatment, I had to take opioids for the pain as well as anti-nausea medications. And my whole for 7 weeks, this was my life, right? And throat numbing drinks to the last 15 minutes because swallowing was like strep throat, like broken glass, and then trying to get the food in as quickly as possible. My managers did all that, balancing the opioids, which make me sleepy, with the need to drive 4 hours so I could come home and be with my dogs. And after that process, I was able to come to them and bow. And they basically said, okay, you're back. Now we can soften back. Then I could come to the parts that found that so incredibly hard and frightening. Right? So it's another teaching piece for me around when the managers take over. You know, a lot of IFS therapists are like, oh, you need to get that manager to unblend. Not always. Not always. Right? Like they took over because I was not able for, I was at some points, but a lot of the time I wasn't able to access my self energy and they knew it. They're like, okay, they're showing me, they're like, roll their sleeves up, we'll do this. We'll drive for 4 hours. You don't have to worry about it, right? So, yeah, so all of those processes and more, I've articulated in the book because the intent is that it's going to be helpful. Now, not everyone's going to like it. Some people think medicines are just drugs and you're getting high. They can have those parts. That's fine, right? Not everybody's going to like it because it's written by a fag. I don't care. The people that it speaks to, it will speak to. And I believe it will continue to speak to as the years go by, as IFS and medicine work becomes the dominant paradigm in how we can help and how we can heal. Because I had to deal with the medical paradigm that told me it was a battle, that told me, what did they say? Just think positive.
Mm.
Fuck off. Right? How dare you invalidate my parts that aren't thinking positive? They fully need my attention. The ones that are frightened, the ones that um, were worried.
Mm.
This would happen
Mhm.
because the cancer is metastasized about 5 months ago. So I also have lung cancer. Right? So the throat cancer is what's going to get me, but it's not because I'm going to have the M.A.I.D beforehand, right? So, so that's a very long answer to your question, but you know I ramble.
But it's exactly what I wanted you to say and what I wanted to hear from you.
Right.
And Derek, I'm just really appreciating what you're saying about noticing the dance of parts and the idea that I know we know this, but when we're in the middle of something, when you told me this and I've been blended with all these parts, you know, we know it intellectually, right? I know IFS really well, you know IFS really well, but when we're in the middle of something, when I get this devastating news and when you get this devastating news, our parts just do what they need to do. And so this idea that I can have this dance with these parts, and I've been watching them and I've been noticing them and sort of these different thoughts that I've had and feelings that I've had. And I'm like, okay, I can still be here. And then sort of earlier today, I was noticing I was with a client and I thought, I sound like a reporter right now. And I thought, oh, that's my parts getting ready to meet with Derek. I'm in a reporter mode. Like here's the devastation behind me, everyone. See all the houses that burned down? Back to you, Jay. Like I was like, oh, that's what's happening. I've got to
Yeah,
report this reporter part.
yeah, it's got an important job to do, and it can't afford for you to be flooded by the other part. So let's get on with it. Yeah, no, I love that part of you. What a great part to have.
Yeah.
And your capacity to recognize it and not invited to do anything else other than, oh, okay. Like I have a planning part. It's my dominant part. It's amazing. It's amazing, right? And it's often like blended with me. One time I was walking the dog and it was like, well, when we get back, we can do this. We're going to meet with Tammy, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, could you pull back so we could be in the moment? Right? Which
Mm.
sounded like it was self-led, it wasn't. And this part said, I am in the moment. This is what I do in the moment. I plan. I'm like, you fuck up, right? So yeah, your reporter, my planner, they're amazing. Yeah.
What about IFSCA trainings? And I know you have so many leaders and so many teachers. What's going to happen with that amazing organization?
So I don't call them trainings. I
Okay,
have courses. So the IFS
course.
Institute does trainings. I have courses. Um,
Again, there's that respect. There's that respect, which I think is just so beautiful.
but I have senior staff that have worked now for years, and this last year they've been astonishing. So I got to name them, Gustavo and Melissa and Robin. Um, so over the past year, there have been times when I suddenly couldn't teach. I frantically emailed them. They always stepped in. They would rearrange their schedules. They would rearrange their clients, and they would hold the information because I'm actually very private, and I didn't want, you know, dozens of people saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear." It's like, no, I don't know. Um, so
So
they
you haven't told many people at all about
held it
this.
very tight. I've held it very tight. Yeah.
That's
And
great.
they've taken on the teachings, right? So they're teaching the Stepping Stone course. They've developed a fabulous course called Stepping Deeper, which is
Mm.
also a 4-month course, but there's so much. So after Stepping Stone, folks are like, well, where do we go now, right? So I have an advanced weekend and blah, blah, blah. And so it's a response to that, right? So the as IFSCA will continue. Um, Melissa Galbraith is now the chief operating officer, so I keep calling her Coup. So she'll be taking point. She'll be the lead. But I have to tell you, my admin staff are amazing. One of them lives in Brazil, and she sent me an email. She said, if Melissa's the new you, she needs to write the word fuck at least 3 times in every email, otherwise it won't feel like you. So, but they've been and they are remarkable. I mean, when I was teaching the courses, sometimes people just stand out, right? And so I don't want people teaching that are good. I want people that are exceptional. So I would notice these exceptional students. It's like, come do some more. So that's how I found them. Also, Fleur Romano is stepping into that position and Kelsey Feinstein. So I've got some really good folks that are going to keep the work going. And that's part of my legacy. Yeah.
Yeah, what was happening for you, Derek, as I was saying, kind of where I met you and just the idea of, and I only know your IFS story, sort of from the YouTube on. I mean, I know you had a whole other life happening outside of that. And I was also remembering, so my question is going to be when I get to it, is going to be sort of what is it like for you to think about just this progression of what's happened in your life and kind of where you are and how that yeah, I'm curious about that. And I was gonna say, I also remember you wintering in Texas.
Mhm.
Do you remember this? I mean, obviously you remember this, but yeah, you were like, I'm in this driveway. So people I think don't know this about you is that you are very private. And so you would winter in Texas down some long driveway in the middle of nowhere. And I was like, well, do you go to town and eat some barbecue?
If
And
I
you went until COVID.
if I drive for half an hour, yes, but otherwise I stock up. It's like, and now I've moved to I live on top of a hill at the base of a mountain, and all I can see is trees and mountain, and I walk my dogs every day, and that's how I prefer to be. Actually a deeply introverted person, and I've got these parts that can be very extroverted, bless their hearts, you know. So, but
Right, right.
my internal world is it's also so rich. Like you're never alone with your parts, you know.
Mm, yeah, yeah. What about this idea of how things like, so when you think about that, when you think about, wow, you started, and you might, there's probably more to the story, but you started with these YouTube videos and just teaching and modeling IFS, and now like how that's just evolved. Like what comes up for you about that?
Well, it's funny because that's also in the book. The book really starts with my first encounter with Dick, right? But after coming back from my Tulum, I was sold. It's like, whoa.
Where,
This
so where did you meet Dick?
in the retreats in my Tulum, we used to do retreats down in Mexico
Okay, okay,
about 20 years ago or so. Uh,
okay.
but after those, I came back and I'm like, this is the thing, right? This is the thing. So I went on YouTube to get more information, and there was nothing there.
Yeah.
Like, what century do you people live in, right? So went off to Best Buy, got a video camera, came home, made those first videos with a video camera on a step ladder with green tape and a little script underneath because it was important. It's
Hmm.
important. And people that don't have access to therapists or therapy, which is frankly elitist, right, in our capitalist culture, I wanted people to have access to this understanding because it's
Hmm.
so transformational and it's so true. And that has maintained, it's still important. And it's important for end of life and it's important for terminal diagnosis. It's just important.
Hmm.
So that was what motivated me to make these videos and then take the camera back because you could have it for 2 weeks. But yeah, yeah, pretty cool. It's like alone.
You did not take the camera back.
Totally. I've just been to Mexico. It was really expensive to go to Mexico. I didn't need a video camera. I've made my videos.
You didn't make them all in that 2 weeks, did you?
No, I ended up buying a video camera.
Okay, eventually, but okay, I get those parts. I get those parts. I love that. Um, and then it's so funny you said that because I was thinking how I almost wonder if that's how your managers were like, we're gonna do this for 2 weeks. That's sort of the agreement, and just sort of see what happens.
No, it was more like I'm cheap. Never cheap part. That eventually broke down and bought the video camera because I have a part that discovered I like making videos.
Mm.
And I went to a retreat in England last year. So after the whole radiation and shit, I booked a retreat at Shame Camp, you probably heard of, with Martha and oh God, what's her face?
Chris?
No,
No, was
come
it?
Tony, who am I not?
Oh.
Whoops, sorry, Tony. Uh, so my parts were holding until I could get there. And then I was able to spend some time with the parts that had not been attended to while I was busily driving up and down the island. Why am I
Mm.
talking about this?
The cheapness, the video camera, our
Oh yeah.
parts.
So there was people from all over the world there, right? People from Poland and Denmark and places I don't normally go. But I was kind of like this little minor celeb because most of them had seen my videos. It was really odd. It's like, oh, I'm meeting you in person. I'm like, yeah. So they've had a far-reaching impact, which I'm really pleased about, especially with folks that don't have access, right? So the one I'm going to make for therapists working with cancer, I also hope is going to be so helpful. And my hope is that at some point the hospice world will take on how to help people towards the end, right? Is there a frightened part? Can you be with it? That kind of thing, you know? Because
Yeah.
I volunteered in hospice in the 80s. In the 80s, I was an AIDS counselor and living in community. A quarter of us were infected, which meant death at the time. I volunteered
Mhm.
in an AIDS hospice, and I know a bit about hospice work, and if in any way I had this sort of spurs IFS to get into the hospice community, would be so good. Yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm surprised. I'm sure someone's doing that work, right? Someone's got to be doing IFS and hospice work, but that makes so much sense. That we would, like, why wouldn't, I mean, we all know that if we have so many parts up around dying, either
Right.
our dying or our friends or our partners or just death in general.
Yeah.
Um,
And
so it
yet,
makes
you don't really, right? You don't really, right? I mean, we all say, I could be hit by a bus tomorrow, but you don't really believe that, right?
no,
So I
no.
will pass in 5 weeks.
So we're recording this. It is January 16th, but you've asked that this not be released until after you pass.
That's right. So my transition day is February the 18th, 2020.
Okay.
And I'm calling it my transition day because this is another aspect of the book. I know where I'm going. And I know with absolute certainty that I'm becoming an ancestor. Because when we call on the ancestors, think about it for a minute. They were alive at some point, and then they became ancestors. So my soul is journeying through this lifetime, being called home. And that's the mystery. Why am I being called home at 61? I don't know. But the only way my body can respond to being called home, because I'm healthy, is to generate cancer.
Wow. Okay.
So that's the vehicle whereby my soul will go home. And then when I
Okay.
go home, I'm available as an ancestor.
Mhm.
And you just have to call on me. You don't even have to believe it. So Tammy, if you're missing me, right? And you hear someone say, Tammy, what the fuck are you doing now? It's me. That'll be my calling card for you.
I love that so much.
Yeah, so that's where I'm going. And
It's beautiful.
the certainty, I'm so blessed, Tammy, because I've had experiences which give me that certainty. And if I hadn't, if I was hoping that's where I go, if there was a part believing it, right, was trying to override all the other parts that were terrified, that would be awful. But I'm
Yeah.
so blessed to know that's where I'm going to go. And the why of this particular point in my life, sometimes you just have to, I have to accept the mystery. And my parents are comfortable with that. There are mysteries in the world, you know? If I asked you about experiences which might come under the title of like psychic or weird or deja vu, you would have parts that would want to tell me because we all have those experiences and they're connected for me to the mystery. The mystery of doing, when you're having a fabulous IFS session and you ask just the right question, or you get an image and you share it with the client and they say, oh my God, that's exactly what happened. You know, like those, that's the mystery. That's the magic of IFS.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes, Derek, I'm going so fast that I'll notice mystery, but I just keep going. And I will later think, oh, I just missed something. And sometimes I can't even remember it.
Right. Yeah.
So how has it been for you to have a huge lifestyle change 13 months ago when you are a producer, you are a doer? I'm curious what that process has been like for you.
I think beyond what I've shared already, I think that encapsulates it, you know. And I'll say, Tammy, you know, this is, I also, like you, I operate really rapidly in the world. It's like bum, 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 right? So, you know, I thought I'd write a book, so I wrote 40,000 words in 2 weeks. So, you know, okay. And I don't type. I type with one hand because when I learned to type, I was smoked. Um, so
What
what
does the other hand do while you're typing?
smoke? Oh, now it
So
sits
now, yeah.
in the mouse.
Okay.
Um, bum, 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 bum.
Yeah.
So when I can get out of that's where the medicines have been really helpful.
Gotcha.
And when I can sit on my hilltop with a fire and my dog and open into a heart space, it settles me. And I receive information sometimes in that space, like I'm being called home and cancer is the vehicle. Oh, I see. I see.
There's something very comforting comforting and assurance. There's some assurance there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I would wish for anybody in this position. And of course, people might be hearing this and saying, oh, he's got delusional parts, whatever. I mean, however people make meaning is how they make meaning. And some people will hear this and go, oh, maybe this is possible. Maybe it's possible to approach the transition with this kind of equanimity. And that would be my hope.
Um, I'm curious about your daughter and how she's doing, and um, is she still in college?
Well, she started university out here, which is why I moved out here. But she's at UVic, she's in second year, and Tammy, she's brilliant. We've been able to have the conversations we need to have. So she thanked me for giving her a magical childhood, which I did. She wept as she told me that she realized I wouldn't be here for her children, and I'd be such
Mm.
a good granddad. And she's very clear that she wants to hold my hand as I pass. And one of the things that made her childhood so magical was I would sing songs to her. So I made some recordings of songs for her. And I'll just share one with you briefly because it's so sweet because of this. A mouse lived in a windmill in old Amsterdam. A windmill with a mouse in, and he wasn't grousing. He sang every morning, how lucky I am, living in a windmill in old Amsterdam. So what I've done with the video is I'm talking to her child. And I'm saying, hey, little one, this is a song I used to sing your mom. So they will have some connection to me. Yeah.
You're quite a singer.
Why, thank you. You should hear my girl. She's amazing. Yeah.
Well, I've seen pictures of her, and she is stunning. And you know,
Yeah, she has that too. Yeah. Yeah.
that's beautiful, Derek. Has that just been something that you've just known to do, or sort of these are the sort of this logistics around passing, around transitioning, just sort of logistical things or special things that, because I feel like I have parts that are like, and you just stay up all night just making sure that you make the most of the next 5 weeks.
Not at all. No. The logistical stuff is actually very irritating, but this isn't logistical. This is what gifts do I want to leave my child that are very personal, and her children, right? So they'll have some sense, right? There's this old guy that sings about mice and windmills. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that just comes, right? It's like, oh, I can sing that to Maya. And I've sung a bunch
Beautiful.
I like chanting around a fire, so I've sung a bunch of chants, which I've recorded for her. She is so not someone that sits around the fire and chants. She's someone that goes to Sephora and makes sure she looks good. It's like, and it's like, oh my God, we have to go for a walk. My pants are gonna get muddy. I'm like, change your fucking pants, like we're going for a walk. But who knows, right? She's 20. When she's 50, she might be one of those women that sits around a fire and says, let's sing this chant. So
Right. Right. And she'll have that of you.
yeah.
Yeah. I love that, Derek. What else? What else needs to be said?
Check to see that you may have a part that just doesn't want to say goodbye. There might
I
be.
don't.
So we don't have to drag everybody through your process, right? We could end, and then you and I can stay and have a chat
Okay.
if you
Okay.
want. If you feel like this is complete,
Does it feel complete to you?
it does. Love ya.
I love you.